My dear brothers, during this Friday, you came to mind while reading an important book of dua. You asked by way of your disposition, what will we do to save ourselves from this calamity? What came to my heart was this: you should remain hand in hand and stand shoulder to shoulder with complete solidarity. Because those who take measures like shunning each other and abstain from the Risale-i Nur and myself, who act in denial and attempt to impress the coward enemies that want to crush us, will gain nothing other than loss. I assure you, if I believed that you would be saved by retreating, I would have allowed you to insult, betray, and backbite me. I would have still forgiven you. However, the coward force that wants to crush us knows who you are and is not deceived. Your weakness and retreat will only increase their confidence to have them intensify their pressure. Moreover, our method is companionship and brotherhood. There can be no rivalry amongst us in terms of individualism and egotism. One should look not at the shortcomings of a very weak and faulty, helpless man like myself, but to the perfections of the Risale-i Nur. Said Nursi. My dear, loyal brothers, a significant solace in the face of the swift changes of this worldly life and its decline and its fleeting, fruitless pleasures and its blows of separation is meeting with true friends. Yes, sometimes one travels for 20 days and spends 100 liras to see a single friend for an hour or two. So now, in these strange, friendless times, our seeing 40 to 50 friends all together for 1 or 2 months, and our speaking together for God's sake, and receiving and giving true consolation, make these difficulties and financial losses that have befallen us extremely cheap and unimportant. I, myself, would have accepted this hardship to see only one of my brothers here after having been parted from them for 10 years. Complaint is criticism of divine determining, while thanks is submission to it. Said Nursi. My dear, loyal brothers, since you have attached yourselves to the Risale-i Nur for the hereafter, and for good works, and worship, and reward, and for belief, and your lives in the hereafter, it is surely necessary to offer thanks for your being here to meet your fate, and eat the sustenance appointed to you, and earn reward for it. This have been determined by divine determining in the school of Joseph, an arena of trial in which each hour in its severe conditions is the equivalent of 20 hours worship. Since those 20 hours are striving in the service of the Qur'an and belief, they have the value of 100 hours. And those 100 hours consist of meeting with true brothers who are striving on God's way, each of which have the importance of 100 people, and to pledging your brotherhood and strengthening them and receiving strength, and consoling them and receiving consolation, and steadfastly persisting in this sacred service in true solidarity, and profiting from their fine qualities and acquiring worthiness to be students of the Madrasatu Zahra. It is necessary to think of all these benefits in the face of all the hardships and to respond to them with patient endurance. Said Nursi. My dear, loyal, constant, and faithful brothers, I am describing some of my circumstances here not to sadden you or to take any physical measures, but so that I might profit more from your shared prayers, and you might practice greater self-restraint, caution, patience, and forbearance, and earnestly preserve your solidarity. The torments and distress I suffer here in one day is more than I suffered in a month in Eskişehir prison. The ghastly Masons have inflicted one of their unfeeling fellows on me, so that out of anger I might lose patience in the face of their torments, and they could then use it as a pretext and make it the reason for their cruel aggression, and so conceal their lies. As a wondrous mark of divine grace, I merely offer thanks in patience, and I am resolved to continue to do so. Since we have submitted to divine determining, and in accordance with the meaning of, the best of matters are the most difficult, and we know these difficulties to be a divine bounty through which we may gain greater merit, and since we have the absolutely certain conviction and the degree of absolute certainty that we have dedicated our lives to a truth more brilliant than the sun, as beautiful as paradise, and sweet as eternal happiness, certainly, knowing that we are carrying out this non-material struggle in God's way, proudly, and offering thanks despite the distressing conditions, we should not complain. My dear brothers, my first and last advice to you is to preserve your solidarity, avoid egotism, selfishness, and rivalry, to preserve your composure and be cautious. Said Nursi. My dear loyal brothers, it is understood from the public prosecutor's indictment that the plans of the coward atheists who deceived some of the leaders of the government, prompting them to move against us, have come to nothing and turned out to be false. They are now trying to conceal their lies by accusing us of forming a political society and a secret revolutionary committee, and as a result, they do not allow me to have contact with anyone. As though all those who have contact with us join us. High officials too are careful to avoid us, and they try to curry favor with their superiors by harassing us. Said Nursi. My dear loyal brothers, for sure I can't meet with you in person, but I am happy and thankful that I am close to you in the same building. It came to me involuntarily that some necessary precautions should be taken. One of these, a prisoner was sent to the ward next to mine by the Masons, who is both a liar and a spy. Since distraction is easy, especially among idle youths such as those, I knew from the scoundrel's excessive harassment of me and his corrupting the youths that atheism is attempting to corrupt their morals in the face of our guiding and reforming them. Extreme caution is necessary in this situation, and it is absolutely essential as far as is possible not to be offended by the old prisoners, nor to offend them, and not to allow any disagreements, and to keep cool and put up with things, and as far as is possible for our brothers to strengthen their brotherhood and solidarity through humility and modesty and giving up egotism. It pains me to concern myself with worldly matters, so having confidence in your perceptiveness, I do not consider them so long as it is not essential. Said Nursi. My brothers, against all eventualities, I have to explain a matter that was imparted to me this morning. Asking, I wonder what atheist philosophers can say to this and what they will support themselves with. For 20 years, my soul and my assailant have investigated whether or not the truths we have taken from the Qur'an leave any room for doubt or hesitation, and if they are as clear as daylight. They could find no fault in any nook or cranny and fell silent. I reckon that a truth which silences my soul and devil, which are extremely sensitive and involved in the matter, will silence also even the most obdurate of them. Since we are working for the sake of and on the way of truth, which is thus unshakable, elevated, vast, and important, and is of inestimable value, and if the whole world and a person's life were given as its price, it will still be cheap. We should certainly respond with complete steadfastness to all the tribulations, distress, and enemies. They have also confronted us with a number of deceived or hoodwinked hojas, sheikhs, and apparently pious people. We must preserve our unity and solidarity in the face of them and not bother with them or argue with them. Said Nursi. My dear, loyal brothers, a pious person in Kastamonu said, by way of complaint, I have declined, I have lost my former spiritual state, lights and illuminations. I told him, perhaps you have progressed so that you have left behind your illuminations and revelations which flatter the ego, give a taste of the fruits of the hereafter while still in this world, and encourage self-centeredness. By giving up egotism and not seeking fleeting pleasures and through self-abasement, you have perhaps flown to a higher station. Yes, an important divine bounty is not making the person who has given up his egotism perceive the bounty so that he does not become proud and conceited. My brothers, in consequence of this truth, those who think similarly to that person or who take into account the brilliant stations that the good opinions of others give, look at you and among you see the students who appear in the garments of humility and self-abasement and service to be common, ordinary people, and they say, are these the heroes of reality who challenge the whole world? Alas, who are they? Where are the people who are striving to perform this sacred service, before which even the saints remain impotent at this time? If they are friends, they experience disappointments, and if opponents, find their opposition justified. Said Nursi. While in Denizli prison, Bediüzzaman Said Nursi wrote the Risale on the fruits of belief, Meyve Risalesi, over the course of 2 Fridays. It consists of 9 matters of great importance. This Risale is a valuable work which concisely gathers together the truths in the Risale-i Nur. Throughout their imprisonment, the Nur students busied themselves by writing out and reading multiple times this Risale on the fruits of belief. This Risale was at first written in secret and was copied out in matchboxes and was shared between the prison wards. After realizing the value and the benefits and advantages it provided in prisons, they allowed it to be written freely. It was presented as a true defense of the Risale-i Nur to the Denizli court, the appeals court, and to the authorities in Ankara. Due to its significant impact in Denizli prison, and it being the means for our acquittal in terms of the sacred truths of Iman, it is befitting to include here the 6th and 7th matters of the fruits of belief. The 6th topic. This consists of a single, brief proof of the pillar of belief in God, for which there are numerous decisive proofs and explanations in many places in the Risale-i Nur. In Kastamonu, a group of high school students came to me saying, tell us about our Creator. Our teachers do not speak of God. I told them, all the sciences you study continuously speak of God and make known the Creator, each with its own particular tone. Do not listen to your teachers, listen to them. For example, a well-equipped pharmacy with life-giving potions and cures in every jar, weighed out in precise and wondrous measures doubtless shows an extremely skillful, practiced, and wise pharmacist. In the same way, to the extent that it is bigger and more perfect and better stocked than the pharmacy in the marketplace, the pharmacy of the globe of the earth with its living potions and medicaments in the jars, which are the 400,000 species of plants and animals shows and makes known to eyes that are blind even by means of the measure or scale of the science of medicine that you study, the all-wise one of glory, who is the pharmacist of the mighty pharmacy of the earth. To take another example, a wondrous factory which weaves thousands of sorts of cloth from a simple material doubtless makes known a manufacturer and skillful mechanic. In the same way, to whatever extent it is larger and more perfect than the human factory, the traveling dominical machine known as the globe of the earth, with its hundreds of thousands of heads, in each of which are hundreds of thousands of factories, shops, and makes known by means of the measure or scale of the science of engineering which you study, its manufacturer and owner. And for example, a depot, store, or shop in which has been brought together and stored up in regular and orderly fashion 1,001 varieties of provisions undoubtedly makes known a wondrous owner, proprietor, and overseer of provisions and foodstuffs. In just the same way, to whatever degree it is vaster and more perfect than such a store or factory, this food store of the most merciful one known as the globe of the earth, this divine ship, this dominical depot and shop holding goods, equipment, and conserved foods, which in 1 year travels regularly an orbit of 24,000 years and carrying groups of beings requiring different foods and passing through the seasons on its journey and filling the spring with thousands of different provisions like a huge wagon, brings them to the wretched animate creatures whose sustenance has been exhausted in winter by means of the measure or scale of the science of economics which you study. This depot of the earth makes known and makes loved its manager, organizer, and owner. And for example, let us imagine an army which consists of 400,000 nations, and each nation requires different provisions, uses different weapons, wears different uniforms, undergoes different drill, and is discharged from its duties differently. If this army and camp has a miracle working commander who on his own provides all those different nations with all their different provisions, weapons, uniforms, and equipment without forgetting or confusing any of them, then surely the army and camp show the commander and make him loved appreciatively. In just the same way, the spring camp of the face of the earth, in which every spring a newly recruited divine army of the 400,000 species of plants and animals are given their varying uniforms, rations, weapons, training, and demobilizations in utterly perfect and regular fashion by a single commander-in-chief who forgets or confuses not one of them, to whatever extent the spring camp of the face of the earth is vaster and more perfect than that human army, by means of the measure or scale of the military science that you study, it makes known to the attentive and sensible its ruler, sustainer, administrator, and most holy commander, causing wonderment and acclaim, and makes him loved and praised and glorified. Another example, billions of electric lights that move and travel through a wondrous city, their fuel and power source never being exhausted, self-evidently make known a wonder-working craftsman, an extraordinarily talented electrician who manages the electricity, makes the moving lamps, sets up the power source, and brings the fuel. They cause others to congratulate and applaud him and to love him. In just the same way, although some of the lamps of the stars in the roof of the palace of the world in the city of the universe, if they are considered in the way that astronomy says, are 1,000 times larger than the earth and move 70 times faster than a cannonball, they do not spoil their order, nor collide with one another, nor become extinguished, nor is their fuel exhausted. According to astronomy, which you study, for our sun to continue burning, which is 1,000,000 times larger than the earth and 1,000,000 times older, and is a lamp, and stow in one guest house of the most merciful one, as much oil as the seas of the earth, and as much coal as its mountains, or as many logs and much wood as 10 earths are necessary for it not to be extinguished. And however, much greater and more perfect than this example are the electric lamps of the palace of the world in the majestic city of the universe, which point with their fingers of light to an infinite power and sovereignty which illuminates the sun and other lofty stars like it without oil, wood, or coal, not allowing them to be extinguished or to collide with one another through traveling together at speed to that degree by means of the measure of the science of electricity which you either study or will study. They testify to and make known the monarch, illuminator, director, and maker of the mighty exhibition of the universe. They make him loved, glorified, and worshipped. And for example, take a book in every line of which a whole book is finally written, and in every word of which a surah of the Qur'an is inscribed with a fine pen. Being most meaningful with all of its matters corroborating one another, and a wondrous collection showing its writer and author to be extraordinarily skillful and capable, it undoubtedly shows its writer and author together with all his perfections and arts as clearly as daylight, and makes him known. It makes him appreciated with phrases like, "What wonders God has willed," and "Blessed be God." Just the same is the mighty book of the universe. We see with our eyes a pen at work which writes on the face of the earth, which is a single of its pages, and on the spring, which is a single folio, the 300,000 plants and animal species, which are like 300,000 different books, all together, one within the other, without fault or error, without mixing them up or confusing them, perfectly and with complete order, and sometimes writes an oath in a word like a tree, and the complete index of a book in a point like seed. However, much vaster and more perfect and meaningful than the book in the example mentioned above is this compendium of the universe and mighty embodied Qur'an of the world, which is infinitely full of meaning, and in every word of which are numerous instances of wisdom, to that degree, in accordance with the extensive measure and far-seeing vision of the natural science that you study, and the sciences of reading and writing that you have practiced at school, it makes known the inscriber and author of the book of the universe, together with his infinite perfections. Proclaiming, "God is most great," it makes him known. Uttering phrases like, "Glory be to God," it describes him. Acclaiming him with words like, "All praise be to God," it makes him loved. Thus, hundreds of other sciences like these make known the glorious creator of the universe, together with his names, each through its broad measure or scale, its particular mirror, its far-seeing eyes and searching gaze. They make known his attributes and perfections. It is in order to give instruction in this matter, which is a brilliant and magnificent proof of divine unity, that the Qur'an of miraculous exposition teaches us about our Creator, most often with the verses, "Sustainer of the heavens and the earth," and "He created the heavens and earth." I said this to the schoolboys, and they accepted it completely, affirming it by saying, "All thanks be to God, for we have received an absolutely true and sacred lesson. May God be pleased with you." And I said, "Man is a living machine who is grieved with thousands of different sorrows and receives pleasure in thousands of different ways, and despite his utter impotence, has innumerable enemies, physical and spiritual, and despite his infinite poverty, has countless needs, external and inner, and is a wretched creature continuously suffering the blows of death and separation. Yet, through belief and worship, he at once becomes connected to a monarch so glorious he finds a point of support against all his enemies and a source of help for all his needs, and like everyone takes pride at the honor and rank of the Lord to whom he is attached, you can compare for yourselves how pleased and grateful and thankful and full of pride man becomes at being connected through belief to an infinitely powerful and compassionate monarch, at entering his service through worship, and transforming for himself the announcement of the execution of the appointed hour into the papers releasing him from duty. I repeat to the calamity-stricken prisoners what I said to the schoolboys. The person who recognizes him and obeys him is fortunate, even if he is in prison, while the person who forgets him is wretched and a prisoner, even if he resides in a palace. In fact, one wronged but fortunate man said to the wretched tyrants who were executing him, "I am not being executed, but being demobilized, and departing for where I shall find happiness. But I see that you are being condemned to eternal execution, and am therefore taking perfect revenge on you. And declaring, there is no God but God, he happily gave up his spirit. Glory be unto you, we have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise.